child of God. But he showed us in this same scripture, the only way you can be in human form yet function as a child of God is when you are full of grace and truth. That means without grace, without truth, there is no way you can function in this body as a child of God. It will take the enablement of grace for you to operate in this body as a child of God. And he began to reveal something to us. This was not so before now. Before now, there was a different dispensation of the law where men tried to use their abilities to please God. But a new dispensation has come. Verse 15. John bore witness of him and cried, saying, this was he of whom I spake. He that cometh after me is preferred before me, for because he was before me. Verse 16, my emphasis. And of his fullness have we all received grace for grace. You saw that in verse 14. He was in this body operating as a child of God because of what? Grace and truth. You too, who is now a child of God, as captured in verse 12, is now telling you in verse 14, verse 16, that you will function as a child of God when you are what? You receive grace upon grace. So it takes the fullness of grace for a human to be able to operate as a child of God. And this is a new dispensation that God has brought. Verse 17. For the law, this is the prior dispensation where men kept rules using their willpower to be God's children. They couldn't. For the law was given by Moses. The era where men strived to become God's children by obedience to laws, rules, and regulation, and couldn't. It said, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. So God is not throwing away principles. He's not throwing away his ways. But it is not your keeping it now by your ability that justifies you. It is by the ability of God that comes in you now that empowers you to live right or to keep God's ways. That's why it's always grace and truth. But the emphasis here is that for you to function like Christ, which is Son of God in human form, you must know how to walk in grace. And I told us, none of us lacks grace. John 1:16, he said, of his fullness have we all, not apostles, not prophets, not evangelists, of his fullness have we all of us who believe in him, received grace heaped upon grace. So you are full of grace. But the question is, do you know how to draw grace? That means anybody who knows how to draw grace can operate like Jesus Christ. So our crisis is actually a revelation of how much grace we access per time. If the amount of grace we walk in, amount of grace we can draw from our spirit per time increases, our lives will change. The quality of our lives will change. So it's therefore important for us, first, to understand what grace is. Secondly, to know what grace can do. And then thirdly, to know how to walk in grace. If that's the basis for us to live in this body like Jesus Christ. And so very quickly, as we begin our journey, what is grace? From the scripture I read here, the first thing you will find out is that grace is a person. Verse 10, John 1, he was in the world.